welcome to another edition of Shed Talk, my weekly magazine video series looking at all things exhibition budgerigar, including the showing, keeping and breeding of those particular birds. Well, can I begin by making a short apology that I haven't managed to get any videos out for just over a week now. And those of you that follow me on the Shed Talk Facebook page will know that I wasn't particularly well, so I wasn't able to do any recording. And whilst it was only just, you know, the normal winter viruses that we get over here in the UK, it did take it out of me a little bit, and it just meant that I wasn't feeling up to not only recording but doing the editing of the various bits of the video as well. So like I say, my apologies to that. I do hope that I will be able to catch up a little bit over the next 3 weeks or so, so there won't be any reduction in the number of videos overall that I plan to produce, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. So in this particular video, we're going to begin to have a quick look at the various breeding pairs that we put down. You may remember a couple of videos ago we started to pair up. We paired up 4 in total, mainly the outcrosses, and this video will look at how those particular pairs are getting on, and then I'll discuss the other pairs that I'm currently looking at putting down. Once again, because of the virus that I had, I haven't been able to fully pair up those. I've done it on paper, but I haven't been able to look at those in any detail and pair any additional pairs up. Before we begin looking at those particular birds, what I'd just like to say is a big congratulations to the Miller Partnership on their success at the Budgerigar Society World Show in taking Best in Show. I believe this is the 4th time that the Millers have taken Best in Show at the BS Club show, and it just goes to show the depth of quality that particular partnership has in terms of their birds. Like I say, a truly remarkable effort by the Millers Partnership, and it just goes to show the dedication that they put in to their particular stud in order to not only get to that high honour of winning the Best in Show, but you know, continuing year after year to produce high quality or top quality birds. Well done to the Miller Partnership. I suppose we can all only dream of producing such high quality birds. Well, before we start looking at how those early breeding pairs are getting on in my very small setup, it's time to have a look at one of the subscribers' birds. Some of you will know that if you send me some pictures of your particular birds, your flock, whether they just be your pet birds or the birds that you're breeding to show, I will post some pictures of them in the videos. And this time around, Michael Brown sent me some pictures of his birds, and I will show those now, and I hope you'll agree that Michael's got some really stunning looking birds there, really doing very well. I know he's recently come back into the hobby, so I hope you enjoy looking at Michael's birds. I hope you enjoyed that little look at Michael's birds. I hope you'd agree, he's certainly got some really nice looking birds there, and we wish him all the best now he's back in the hobby. Anyway, how are we getting on in my shed, particularly in terms of those breeding pairs that we've recently put down? We'll start with pair 1, which is actually in cage 3 behind me, and I think you can see the birds there. This is the outcross Sky cinnamon opaline. across to one of my birds, which is a yellow face opaline cinnamon grey. This pair have bonded really well actually, and the hen almost immediately started to identify the nest box. She's been in and out of it. She's absolutely cleared the nest box of everything that I've put in there. I do keep adding a little bit to give her something to do. In terms of coming into condition for laying, I've seen one or two slightly larger poops in the bottom of the cage, but there's nothing major in there, so she's probably still got a little while to go. But there's mutual grooming. The cockbird's constantly feeding the hen. I've not seen any mating take place, but that's not to say it hasn't when I'm not in here. So high hopes that this pair one is going to do well for me, but only time will tell, so we'll have to wait and see. So that's pair one in cage 3, as I say. What about the other cages? Moving on then to cage 2, which is actually in cage 5. This is an outcross cockbird, which is the opaline grey, and this is crossed to one of my young birds, an opaline cinnamon grey green hen. I was just double checking there that I had the right bird. So this particular pair, the hen is showing no signs of going into the nest box. I mean, there is a little bit of mutual pruning or preening going on in the cage, but I've not seen any sign of the cockbird really feeding the hen or anything like that. So I'm going to give this pair probably another couple of weeks just to see how they get on. It's a young maiden hen, so it may be that it's just taken her a little bit longer to understand what needs doing in terms of getting into the nest box and all that. I've not even seen the hen, seen the cockbird looking to the nest box either. So we'll have to wait and see with this pair. So touch wood, we'll still we'll get something off them, but like I say, we will need to wait and see. So not showing nowhere near the signs of going down to nest that we saw with the first pair. So anyway, that is pair 2 in cage 5. Moving on then to pair 3, which is in cage 4 from my point of view. This is an outcross hen. It's a hen that we picked up last year that didn't breed anything from me, so it was a sky blue cinnamon hen. She's crossed to a one of my cockbirds, so a light green cockbird. So far the hen, as she tends to do, has been in and out of the nest box. There's been a little bit of clearing, but not massively, and there's a little bit of interest from the cockbird in the hen, but again not a huge amount. So we'll have to wait and see, like with the previous pair, how this pair get on. It seems to be, the hen seems to be following the same sort of routine that we had last year, with her checking the nest box out, doing a little bit of clearing of the nest box, but not showing any signs of going down. But who knows, we just, you know, I've now tried her. This will be the, I think, the 3rd or 4th cockbird that we've tried her with. If nothing comes of this, then I'll split this pair and just put it down to experience, and with this hen she can go back into flight and see out her days in there. Anyway, that's pair number 3, which is in cage number 4. And the final pair that we've got down is actually a pair that we haven't looked at, because you may remember when I originally put this down, the cockbird that I put with the hen of this or with this hen looked really off colour, so I actually took him out and letting him have a rest in the one of the stock cages, see if he comes back into condition. But he was really out of condition, not very well at all. So we swapped this bird over. So the replacement cockbird is a cinnamon opaline sky. Just double check that. Yeah, an opaline cinnamon sky blue, and which is one of my birds, and it's with an outcross opaline cobalt hen. The hen has been in and out of the nest box, and both the cockbird and the hen are, you know, showing signs that they are compatible. So she lets him groom, he grooms her, she grooms him. There's been a little bit of clearing of the nest box, but no other signs that they're about to go, or that she's about to start laying. Obviously no mating with this pair either, but I think, you know, this pair do look compatible, and touch wood, again, we might get something off this pair in the relatively near future. So that's the pairs that we've currently got down, all 4 of them. As I think I said at the beginning of the video, with me not being very well, I've not had a chance to put any of the other pairs down, but I have done some paper pairing and looked at how they look in terms of my breeding records. So what I think I'll do now is I'll just quickly run through there so you can see what I do in terms of the breeding records and how I look at them in terms of that paper compatibility. So we've looked at the first 4 pairs which contain the outcrosses, and on those birds you'll remember all I did really was just compare them up initially on paper using the scores that I set when I did my assessment. So looked at the one of the birds, so one of the outcrosses, and then basically paired it up with what I thought on paper looked like a reasonable match, so not doubling up on faults, all that sort of stuff, trying to improve those areas that are not particularly good in each of the 2 birds. And once I did that, I popped them into the show cage, took a look at them, made sure there was no obvious reason why they couldn't be paired, and that's all I really needed to do. When I'm pairing up my own birds, so not an outcross, just 2 of my own birds, the process is very similar. So as we know, I got my assessment form, and I do the same thing. So I pick a bird that has not been paired, I try to look at the assessment form for a reasonable, so say I've got a cock bird, reasonable hen that looks compatible on paper. What I then need to do though is to check my breeding register to see whether the birds, or how closely the 2 birds are related, and for that I use a online breeding record program called Zooeasy, and I have mentioned this in previous videos. And what I'll do now is just talk through very briefly how I go about looking at those, what I'm looking at, and whether or not the bird would be compatible or not in terms of putting them into a breeding cage. So this is the program that I use. As you can see, it's called Zooeasy online. It's a annual subscription to it, and overall it doesn't work out any more expensive than if you were literally just buying breeding record cards and breeding books, so you know, your stock books. So I find it relatively so in terms of cost, I don't find it overly expensive, and the other thing is, of course, it saves having lots and lots of breeding books and having to go through them manually. This takes out a whole load of the work when you're comparing, as we will see very shortly. It holds all of the birds, both those that have that are no longer in the shed for whatever reason, whether they've died or whether I've passed them on, including those, and I managed and those that are just in the shed and still alive. You can set it up so that it will only show you the birds that are still alive, which is what I've done. But if you're looking at previous records and want to go back to see offspring or who the parents were, those birds are still there, so it's not like they've gone anywhere. The information, as I say, is held online, so it's not like I can use it from any computer. So I just log into the system and then all the records are there. Because they're online, if the hard drive goes down on, say, my laptop, it's not like all the information is lost. So that's why I prefer the online version to the downloaded version. So how do I go about this with the birds then? Well, the first thing, I've got some pairings here on paper that I've done. So the first thing we do is we go to, on the left hand side, we go to the breeding pairs, and we're going to do a trial breeding pair. So I hit the trial breeding pair, and that brings me up a number of options, as you can see. And the first one is going to select the cockbird, and the first cockbird we're going to look at is one of this year's bred birds, which is number 2 of this year, so the second bird I bred of this year. Find it, click on it, This is the nice cobalt that we've got, and that will load it into there. At the moment, nothing else happens. We now need to find the hen that I've picked on paper. Like I say, I've already picked this hen on paper, and we will find her. And this hen is a 0421. So this bird here, just so you can see that I've got 04A. That was because the original 04 died, but it was so small that I managed to get the ring off it, so I just reused the ring. That's why it's an A. And there we go. So those are the two birds that we're looking at. As you can see, they're both up there. Again, nothing's happened so far. The first thing I want to do is to calculate the relationship percentage. And if I click on this calculate relationship percentage, you'll see that up here, this has changed now to 7.81, which instantly tells me that these birds are not too closely related, but there is some relationship there. If it was a 0, that means they would be not related. And that's what we would have had here if I'd shown the outcrosses. So these two birds aren't related at all. The next thing I do is to click on the trial pedigree, and this will give me a slightly different view. So you can see here, I'll just expand this. You can see here it shows me basically the birds that the two birds we've selected have come from. Cockbird at the top goes back down to grandparents, and at the bottom we've got the hen, which again goes back down to grandparents. Clearly, if I didn't have the full record cards for these birds, it would only go back as far as I do. And then over here on the farthest left is a fictitious animal, and it gives me an inbreeding coefficient. Now this basically tells me how closely those genes are for that particular bird, and it's a fine balance here. You want it reasonably close, or you want some relationship so that you're beginning to set up a family of birds, but you don't want it so close that you're in effect inbreeding or getting to the stage where you're limiting the number of genes in that particular bird, and that will produce a number of problems, both including infertility, but also you're not going to be getting anything additional into that bird if all you're doing is putting the same genes into it. So in this case, the inbreeding coefficient is 3.19, and that's actually on the lower end that I want, but it's okay. It's not too bad. So from my point of view, that's okay. So about 4% inbreeding coefficient is okay. Like I say, prefer it to be a little bit higher, but that's fine. So I would say that these two birds would now be a pair of birds that I would be happy to pair up. The final thing I will need to do with this pair, of course, is to do a visual check, and we'll look at how I do that in a future video, but this would just be a visual check following on from that. So that's that first one done. What I'll do now is do another trial pedigree where you can see a slightly different outcome. So first one of these, again, I've done it on paper as we did before. So the first one is, again this year, is a 2215 cockbird. So that's number 15 of this year, of 2022. And the hen that I've selected for that is a last year's hen, which is 1721. This one here. And once again, we now need to do the percent relationship. And you can see this time it's giving me quite a high relationship percentage of 42.19. Now that is actually quite high. If it gets above 50, then I would certainly not go any further than this, but it is on the higher end of the relationship calculation. That means basically they're sharing almost 50% genes here. So if I do the trial pedigree, I can now have a look at this, because sometimes it can be offset by a particular bird. And in this case, the inbreeding coefficient on the left hand side here, as you can see, is down at 21.09. And that's at the upper limit for me. I certainly wouldn't go any higher than 25% unless I was absolutely, it was going to produce a really, really good bird. The good thing is if I look at the parents, so their inbreeding coefficient is actually down at 3.1 for the hen and 6.625 for the cockbird. So that's actually not too bad. The reason it's quite high is because, let's have a quick look, because they're because these two birds are in fact half brother and sister. So there's half brother and sister relationship here on the side of a hen. So they both got the same mother, in effect, but different fathers. So half brother and sister. That's what's producing this high coefficient here. And now I understand why that is. I'm not too worried about breeding half brother and half sister together. What I definitely will need to do though is to bear in mind and put a little note on the file if these two are compatible once I've got them in the breeding cages. Once I've got them in a show cage so I can see them and do my visual check. If I'm going to put these two down on the breeding record and on the record of each of the offspring of this pair, I will note that it's bred from a half brother and sister, and then I will try and make sure they're not bred too closely together with anything that sits within or from this hen. I hope that makes sense. So from the hen that is the mother of the two birds I'm pairing together, I'll try and avoid anything from that particular hen that would go into any offspring of this pairing. So that's how I used this program. Like I say, it makes life so much easier when I'm pairing up. It does all the calculations for you, and it's as you could see, it's very, very quick. So I would recommend it. I'd recommend this program. I think I did a video a little while ago, and I will post a link across the top of the screen now to that video where I talk about the importance of keeping breeding records. So that's and it talks a bit about this particular program. So that's how I use that. Once I've done that, as I say, what I now have to do with these is to do a visual check, and as I said just previously, we will do that in a future video. So there we go, that's Zooeasy and how it helps me pair up. Well, there you are, that's just about all we've got time for in this video. Like I said at the beginning, I will try and catch up on the number of videos over the next couple of weeks. Please do, let me know how you pair up your birds and whether you use an online database to keep your records, or whether you still keep paper records. I know lots of people prefer lots of different ways of doing it, so just leave a comment and let me know how you go about pairing up your birds, and whether you do something similar or something completely different. Before we go though, I just thought I'd let you know that one of the pairs has actually laid their first egg. So if you want to find out which pair that is, then do stay tuned and look out in a future video and the next shed update. In the meantime, if you for a bit of fun, if you want to post again in the comments whether you think it's pair 1, pair 2, pair 3 or pair 4, just put pair 1 or pair through to pair 4 in the comments. And we'll see whether the majority of you are right or not. But as I say, we'll find out in a future video. And don't forget, if you want to know any notifications of those future videos, then do hit the subscribe button and of course hit the bell. If you enjoy the video, hit the like button. Please do comment, send me photographs of your birds if you wish. But until the next video, please do stay safe and enjoy those birds.